Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hi, welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. Before we jump in, I want to share some really important information with you. My name is Natalina Nasruddin, the CEO and the founder of Rise Up For You, and of course, your podcast host. But I wanted to let you know that we are all about providing value to you and helping you be your absolute best. So if you haven't already, make sure you head over to the Rise Up For You website at riseupforyou.com. We have a ton of free resources for you to access. We have quizzes on confidence, emotional intelligence, building overall success in your life. That's right. You can assess yourself in every one of those areas. And we even have master classes with a ton of free videos in every single one of the areas that I just mentioned. So if you're looking to build more self-confidence, you can opt into our confidence masterclass. If you're looking to build more social and emotional intelligence as a leader, we have something there for you. And if you're looking to just have an overall fulfilling life and you don't know which pillar to start with, we have something for you, all completely free. So if you haven't already, head over to riseupforyou.com, head to the free resources tab, and get access to everything completely free just for you. All right, without further ado, let's jump into today's podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Natalina Nasruddin, and I am very excited and thrilled to bring yet again another amazing guest to our podcast. Please help me welcome wherever you are, wherever you're watching, Donna Griffit to the Rise Up For You show. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Netta. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited to have you because I actually think you're one of the few guests we've had in a really long time that's able to talk about corporate storytelling, public speaking, getting your message across. And I know we were talking a little bit off air. A lot of our clients, whether they're leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, being able to craft your message and have influential communication is one of the biggest challenges that we see. And I'm sure
one of the most important skills today in an era of AI and fake stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited to jump in. But before we do that, I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
So I have been a corporate storyteller for over 20 years now. I started off working with Fortune 500 companies with their C-level and tech departments and sales and marketing, helping them create and deliver powerful messages that drove to business results. And then came 2008, which sort of imploded the enterprise. But that was when I pivoted towards startups who were having a much more challenging time raising funding, needed to be able to tell a much better story, and no change from today. It's gotten more important, if anything. And that's been my focus and my passion ever since. I've worked with everything from early stage startups through VCs, through mega Silicon Valley companies like Meta and Google, helping people there find their story, get to their core audience, drive to their results, and have this sense of relief of like, finally, everything that's been in my head. And I've been trying to say, and not quite succeeding, someone has come along and pulled it out and woven it together in this magical way that makes the messages sing.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to ask the golden question, because oftentimes when corporate leaders or just leaders in the corporate workspace, when they hear about storytelling, they can think, well, that's not for me. When am I ever going to tell a story? Why would I use storytelling? So I would love for you to paint a couple pictures of whether you're leading a meeting or getting up in front trying to, pitch your product and service. How can we use storytelling and who can use it within the corporate place?
Okay, so when I first started calling myself a storyteller back in 2008, that was exactly the response. Like, what are you, a librarian? Or do you gather kids and tell story time? No. So, however, if we look at kids, our most basic way of communicating is telling stories. As children start to evolve in language, we're reading books to them. We're telling stories to them. They come home from school. They tell us about their day. We don't ask them for a bullet point presentation on what they did at school and what they learned. And then we go to school and we're taught like, oh, business speaking and communications must be very proper and have big and impressive words. And we move away from that very natural flow of conversation. So all storytelling really is the most basic level of human connection and communication. Every religion, ethnicity, country, culture tell stories. It's one of the only things that we all have in common, that and food, I think. But we all connect to people. And when you're hearing a story, and I'm sure, Netta, right now, you're like, oh, yeah, that reminds me of the time where I did this. So when you start talking to a boardroom or to a panel of investors or to a potential customer, the best way to get inside their mind, heart, and gut is to find a story that shows your empathy towards them, that you get them, that you've experienced something or you know what their need is, and then show that you have a way to solve it or to make their lives better or to bring in a new product or a new idea or a new concept. But first and foremost, it's about connecting to them and letting them show, we get you, we understand you, we see you.
Yeah. That last point I think is really important, is the ability to tell stories allows the listener or the person across from you to connect and say, okay, you do get where I'm coming from, right?
Exactly.
You do understand what we need or where we're at. And that's, I wrote this down because I actually haven't heard it mentioned that way, but the basic level of connection and communication, which is absolutely right. And when I think about all the greatest leaders I ever had, they told stories for days. I was like a kid in a candy shop just listening.
I know, right? It's like I'm addicted to stories. I'm a sucker for a good story. And you find yourself getting swept into the moment. And we all have stories. So people think, what story am I going to tell? First of all, it's got to be a story that connects to the greater theme, because then it ties it all together and it creates like this kind of thread woven into everything. And it's memorable. My book is called Sticking to My Story. And it's got so many layers there, but stories stick. We don't remember facts and figures and numbers and data. We remember stories and how they made us feel. When we go and say, oh my gosh, I met someone today, you won't believe this. We don't say they were wearing a Gucci dress and had a Fendi purse. We say, they told us about this time that blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wow, we remember that. And it kind of becomes our story together. But storytelling also has a specific structure that can guide us to create better messages. So if we go way back in time to early stories, so Greek tragedies are probably some of the oldest recorded stories. There's a very intentional structure of, I call it the 4 acts of a business presentation, because I've taken it from those worlds and brought it into here. So what is the need, the problem? How are we solving it? And that I call the villain and the hero. And it's not like everybody like sometimes rolls their eyes like, oh, problem solution. I learned that in business school a million years ago. And there's a reason. It's been around for several tens of thousands of years because it works. It just works. And then the plan of action of the hero and, the business behind it, and then the vision for the future, what happens next. And that's oftentimes where people fall short. This is part of something that's much bigger. Take them on this journey of what can be. And that's the 4 acts: problem, solution, business, data, numbers, and the vision for the future.
Yeah,
that's
I love
story.
That. So I want to break this down a little bit more for those that are listening that are trying to figure out, okay, where do I even start with this? There's different scenarios, of course. You have potentially, okay, I'm just leading a meeting with my team. Okay, how do I incorporate stories there? You have potentially a pitch, right? Maybe you're going in front of a board of directors or a potential client that you need to pitch and provide value and service to. And then, of course, we have the traditional, I would say more of the public speaking, if you're at that level, individuals that are getting out there on stage, they're doing panels, they're keynoting, whatever, how to craft a stronger story. I want to start with the first 2. So if you are a leader and you're running meetings or you have to deliver presentations in front of a board or potential clients, should you start creating like back pocket stories? Like, how do you start? Do you make a list of what you could potentially say? Do you map it out? Do you just let it come to your mind? Like, how do you let that evolve?
So first of all, you start with the structure. Just like building a house, I'm sitting in a room that's part of a house now. I don't see the structure, the framework that went up, but I kind of know it's there without even thinking about it. So first thing you want to do is put the frame and the foundation into place. Who are you speaking to? What are their needs? What are their wants? What are they looking for? That's where you start. That's the problem, the need, the opportunity. That's in Act 1. Then Act 2, what can you provide? How can you solve this? What are your ideas? What are your visions? And even if you're just giving a keynote at a conference, you are providing them with this level of, I get that there's this struggle in the world. Here's how we can solve it. Then how does it work? How does it look? Anecdotes that back it up. And finally, okay, once we've done that, where do we go from there? How do we make it even better, even bigger? Again, it comes back to that very, very basic structure. So once you have the structure in place, the first question I ask clients is, okay, where did you come up with this idea? Where's the origin story? Where's the seedling of this? And then when you're presenting the problem or the need, you can tell that origin story. It could be yours. It could be a company you worked for. It could be a client of yours. It could be the world at large. Something happened. Something occurred that needed fixing, and you stopped your life to go out and research it or develop for it or become a proponent of it or whatever that might be.
Now, what's your take on, I know for me personally, I have a macro story, like a big story, that I would say is the grand one. And then throughout, whether it's a meeting or throughout a talk, I'll have like little micro stories, more like lessons, right? That are stories.
Little nuggets.
Yeah, what is your take on that?
Absolutely. So I would go with the big story at the beginning, the origin story, how you even got here. And then you're going to pepper your presentation with all kinds of anecdotes and metaphors and things, because these are, again, all kinds of sticky notes. So we're going through our presentation. We want to make things stick. We attach a story to it. We attach a metaphor to it. We attach something that reminds them and resonates with them and makes them go, oh, wow. Yeah, that I get that. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
For sure. So there's like 3 layers of storytelling, because we have the foundation and the 4 acts of the play. We have our big story at the beginning, and then we have a continuous stream of little mini stories and metaphors that reinforce what we're teaching or what we're imparting to them.
Can you have too many stories? Is there like a cap? Like, how do you know when I got too much going on here and I need to take one out?
Well, it depends, first of all, on the time that you have. And how you're trying to drive to action. You don't want to overtell a story. You can like remove a lot of details, and you want to make sure that the story serves your end goal. Like, is this serving it, or is this kind of just a self-gratification moment of like, I'm bragging, which is fine. You can brag, but you don't want to make it all about you. It's about them. The stories need to inform them. And it's creating trust. Like if they're like, oh, wow, she's worked with people like me. I get that. I connect with that. So is it serving to foster that connection?
Okay. Now, how do you combat clients that say, who cares about my story? No one's going to want to listen.
So there are no boring stories. That's what we have to get across. There's only a bored audience. So if you make your story about them and their need, they're never going to be bored. And I can make a story practically out of everything. It's kind of like stone soup. Everyone has a story, whether they think they do or not. It's little moments in life. It could be something that I observed yesterday with one of my daughters, and that brings me to a much bigger realization of a bigger trend happening in the world, or a moment that it made me stop and think, oh my gosh, wow. So it's day to day. It doesn't have to be some big, bold, incredible, earth-shattering story. Sometimes it's just the mundane that make the best stories.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so for those that are listening, what would you say is baby step 1? They're going to listen to this podcast, they're going to hop off, and they're going to sit down with their notepad and be like, okay, I'm committed to becoming a great storyteller. Right. What's my first thing I should put?
First thing is identify who your audience is and what they need. Turn it 180 degrees, have a seat in their chair, have a walk in their shoes. And if you didn't know everything that you knew, and you were back from never hearing this before, what would you want to hear? What's missing in your life? What do you need? That's first. Okay. Yeah. Then you can talk about how your solution, idea, concept, technology can benefit their need. It
Mhm.
will be different for a potential client or a potential partner or a potential investor or your board. You will lead in with different things based on their needs.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
And just to clarify, because I want to make sure this is really clear for our audience, because I know, again, sometimes we can think it's not relevant, but this process of identifying who's your audience, what they need, it can also go down all the way to the level of you running a team meeting, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's in my meeting? What do they need today from this meeting? And how can I make this meeting more transformational, more experiential versus just going through an agenda and hoping my team is motivated to go out there and take action?
Absolutely. So it's exactly that. It's looking at who's in the room, looking at who they are as a group and a team, but also who they are as individuals and what motivates them. Touching on the fact that you see them and you understand that there's a struggle happening there or there's a need happening there and they're calling out for help, for a solution, and you're there to provide it. And you're there with a lot of empathy, but also a lot of guidance and leadership. So going back to kids for a second, it's not our job as parents to be pushovers and be liked. We have to be able to set loving boundaries. And it's the same thing with employees. We don't want to just leave it, everybody do their thing. Everybody has all this freedom. No, sometimes people need to see that there is a responsible adult in the room that has them, that's got it, that sees what's going on and is there to instill structure and guidance and give us space within that to choose and to grow. But there's someone looking out for us.
I was going to say a great place as well to use this is in performance reviews, because it's very intimidating, obviously, for the person that's in the opposite seat, especially if the leader's providing, constructive feedback or forward feedback, using stories to let your team member know, I've been there, like I made this mistake once, here's the story, here's how I grew. And I think that storytelling while you're providing feedback can really, I think, hit home and also create that transformation without that stress, right, of the individual feeling like, they're in trouble or whatnot.
Absolutely. And let me look at the other side of performance reviews. It's usually one of the things that employees hate writing the most because it's very hard to, quote unquote, toot our own horn. I also give a workshop called the X Factor on our true value to a company. Yeah. And if I ask somebody at the beginning, what are your talents? What are your skills that you're bringing to the table? People usually struggle with that. So we go on this journey of looking back in time at something that you did, whether it was planning an event, planning a family vacation, taking over a project at work, whatever it might be that you can attribute success to you. And then breaking down what qualities, what talents, what skills did you have to make this happen? Because if you had it there, you have it at work too. And then looking at your last year, what are some anecdotes that show that you brought this value to the table? And then you have your performance review. Because you're telling it in a way not linear and not a laundry list, rather the true value you bring that's unique to you and how it came to play this year in your results and your performance.
Yeah, I love it. Donna, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast and giving us some incredible value. I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview. So just a few short questions, rapid fire answers. So the first question is, if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it the golden nugget. What would your golden nugget be?
Listen to people's stories and show them that they matter.
Yeah, I love that. And here at Rise Up For You, we're very big on values. So I'd love to ask you, what's one value that you have that's a non-negotiable?
Kindness. I will always look, and this is what I instill to my girls, the most important thing is to be kind. Even when you're giving feedback, even when you're being tough, you want to be kind to people because you never know what they're going through. And it's not just, I call it proactive kindness, looking for those moments that you can just go that little extra mile that might seem like nothing for you, but could make a world of difference for someone else.
Absolutely. And I have one more question for you, but before I ask, where can our audience connect with you? Where can they find you? I know you're on LinkedIn, please share a little bit about where we can find you.
LinkedIn and donnagriffit.com. As you notice, there's no H at the end of my name, 2 Fs. There's a story there, but we'll leave that for another time. So you can reach out to me through the website or donna@donnagriffit.com. My book is on Amazon and it's called Sticking to My Story, The Alchemy of Storytelling for Startups. Audible, Amazon, Kindle, the whole 3.
Okay, great. And we'll make sure we put that in the notes as well for the audience.
Thank you.
Donna, thank you so much again for joining us. Final question is, as you know, our company is called Rise Up For You. What comes to mind for you when you first hear that phrase?
I see it as like the wind beneath your wings, because it's like, for me, for example, I'm not there to put myself in the spotlight. I'm there to make others shine. Someone once called me the polisher of diamonds, and I take that very seriously because I get to work with some of the most brilliant, bright, innovative minds in the world. And sometimes they're just covered in layers of soot and grime and wet cobwebs. And once we're there to rise up, to shine them and help them shine, that is what it's all about, helping others shine.
I love that. Donna, thank you so much for joining us here on the Rise Up For You podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Likewise.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. As you know, we are here every single week bringing you multiple episodes with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, experts from around the world that truly believe in influencing and making an impact and helping you push your potential to be your best. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time. And Donna, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Netta.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and check us out on social media. We are everywhere, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook, at our simple handle @RiseUpForYou. On every single platform, it's exactly the same. And we're providing new content on every single platform, so there's something different everywhere. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, and connect with us on social media. I'll see you next time.